everyone, it's Lou Collins. Today I've got a stamping technique for you. So this one is creating your lighter colour stamping onto a darker background, which is actually quite hard to do. Usually we have to do it the other way round, stamp darker colours onto a lighter background to be able to see the image. So this technique can be done with any stamp you have at home, any colour combination you wish. I love the black with the sort of galaxy colours in there, but you can choose. So let's get started with how this technique is done. So we're going to start on a piece of white cardstock with making sure you've got a good size stamp to go onto your cards. Now it could be this, it could be a complete scene, whatever it may be, but you want reasonably sort of bold detail in there. So I'm going to choose 4 colours. Now I've gone for Wilted Violet, Seedless Preserves, Salvage Patina and Broken China within the Distress Oxide range, but you don't have to use Distress Oxides or inks. Anything that blends together nicely. Any sort of brand of ink will be absolutely fine, because essentially we just want these to go on and then dry for now. So I'm going to start, let's just start with the first one, Wilted Violet. And I don't plan on doing this in any particular pattern. I'm just going to put the 4 colours on. I mean, I'll probably do 4 corners or a diagonal line, something like that. But making sure that you're just going whereabouts your stamp's going to be. And you want to make this really nice, deep, dark colour if you can, so quite thick. So just blending around in circles. There you go, there's quite a bit of the Wilted Violet. So then I'll go, I think then I'll go to the Broken China. And I'll go in a diagonal along here. So blending into each of the colours as well. Making sure you've got a nice join between the two. You see, I'm not going right to the edge of the paper or the cardstock. That's because I know that I'm not going to see this afterwards. I'm only concentrating on whereabouts the stamp's going to be. Let's go next to Seedless Preserves. Make sure I've got the right blending brush here. So this is a really nice bright pink one. I'm working on a smooth cardstock as well, because a smooth cardstock's going to allow that ink to blend much easier. I'm actually going to come back to the Broken China again. I'll just blend through the middle there. And what I've actually got there is where the pink as such, or the Seedless Preserves pinky purpley colour meets the blue. We've got a lovely purple colour there as well. And then lastly, a little bit of Salvage Patina in the corner, just up here. Probably not going to see a great deal of this. That just completes sort of a square of colour there. Lovely. Okay, so just double check as well. So if you lay your image on there, just double check that you have covered the entire area where the stamp's going to be. Now, the hardest part is now to sit and wait for that to dry, or of course you could take a heat tool and speed up the process, but try not to warp the cardstock at all. If you can leave it to air dry, it's perfect, but it does need to be bone dry. And in a minute, when I've dried mine off, I'll show you a way of double checking that before you go on to the next stage. So if your paper feels touch dry, but you're not entirely sure if it is completely dry, you can use a clear embossing powder. Any colour embossing powder would work, and just sprinkle it over the surface of your cardstock and pour it back into the tub. So I can see there, I've just got a little bit still sticking to the last colour I applied, and a small patch up there. So what I then do is tap that off, make sure you remove that completely, and either allow it to air dry a bit longer, or as long as you have removed all the powder off the surface, you can take your heat gun to it again and ensure that's completely dried off. Repeat that process until absolutely no powder sticks to your paper at all, and then we can move on to the next stage. So now mine's dry, I'm going to place it into a stamping platform. Let's just move these out of the way. And before I stamp, I'm going to use an anti-static bag and just dab all over the surface with this, just making sure that that's coated with that powder. Really, more than anything, to make sure powder doesn't stick where you don't want it to be. So then take your chosen stamp, so mine's this large butterfly, and place it on the card or the cardstock. Press down. There we go. I'm going to use clear embossing ink for this. You want to make sure it's clear because we want to see the colour of the ink coming through, and really thoroughly ink up your stamp now. There we go. So completely covered the stamp, and transfer this over our ink here, our coloured inks. So pressing that down, and I'll lift that up. I can clearly see that there's a really good impression of ink on there. You can actually almost see it yourself there. So I can take this away. I'm also going to just take a little bit of water, not a lot, and I'm just going to put a few little droplets on there, scatter them about. Okay, now quite quickly I'm going to apply my clear powder now. Now that's also sticking to the wet splats that I've just done, but mostly the butterfly, the inked butterfly. I'm quite happy with pouring an entire tub on there and then putting it back into the pot afterwards, because it all gets replaced. And what you should have is your butterfly plus some water splats with the embossing powder stuck to them. So now very quickly I'm going to heat all of this and melt it. I want to melt the powder before the water droplets dry. The embossing ink won't usually dry very quickly, so you're good with that. You've got a little while for that to melt. You can see my butterflies going very quickly, making sure that any other water droplets, if they've got powder on them, that they are also melting. And they go clear when they melt. So it's nice and easy to see when you can move on to the next part. You'll notice that the embossing powder that's on the water droplets takes much longer to melt, but it will get there. There we go. So now you can see the butterfly there, nice and glossy. There we go. And you've also got a few of the water splats glossy too. So time to put the stamp and the stamping platform aside. And now we can kind of do a bit more of a reveal of the finished effect. So I'm going to bring in black soot. Now with this one, I'm working with an ink rather than an oxide, because I find black ink is darker than black soot in the oxides. For some reason, the oxides is more of a, I suppose more of a charcoal colour, a dark grey. So now what I'm going to do is work around the entire image, and I'm going directly over everything we've just done. So over the splats, over the white, and over the pinky, greeny, bluey colours as well. So work your way around, going as deep and dark as you can with this black. You can already see that butterfly starting to appear, but we will make that clearer in just a moment. There we go. So I've covered the entire image with black, and you can kind of see now the effect appearing. But this is the best bit, when you take a piece of dry, clean kitchen towel and you rub over the surface and really lift up the ink that's already sitting on there. I love that, so it really brings that butterfly back out. We've got all those colours coming through, like so. There we go, gorgeous. Now I'm just going to finish this off by coming back to my water again, and to speckle this I give it a light mist all over, and then again I give it some blobs. Now these blobs are mostly going to be white rather than the colour that was underneath, because last time we didn't give it a chance to work through the ink to the paper, so instead we put the embossing powder on top and then melted it all, and that stopped any reaction from happening. This time I'm just going to leave this sitting on here for a while, and the water droplets, where they have hit the ink, they're just going to start reacting, and gradually we're going to get some nice white speckles coming out of there as well. So that is that. Now you'll have seen at the beginning these parts were whiter, they'd already started reacting. They do take a little while. Now you can speed those up if you wish to by using your heat gun, and as you dry off the water, you'll notice that reaction actually happens a lot quicker with the ink. But you can also leave it to air dryer, and the reaction will be just the same either way. It just depends whether you're in a bit of a hurry or not to get this sort of effect going on, or whether you're happy for it to wait. So there we go. So there's a lovely distressed inking technique that you can use with virtually any colours and any stamps that you have at home to create this beautiful bright image on a dark background with the sort of the ombre blend of colours, of however many colours you choose. So I hope you try this out, and we'd love to see this effect that you've used over in the Inspiration Gallery on Craft World.